But I think it's important that if you decide to take the mediation route, that you show up with a lawyer, because you get one bite at that divorce apple. You get one bite at division of assets. And if you reach an agreement, you can't later, after you sign it and present it to the court, have second thoughts about it. Better to have a lawyer, hire a lawyer, have that lawyer go in with you, explain your rights, and then see if the matters are resolvable, the issues are resolvable. And many of them are. I've settled, I'd say 90% of the cases I've heard have been settled.
I do divorce mediation as well. Howie, I think you do some. Do you follow Judge Kopelman's model? I don't do it the way he does. But
well, I'll meet with clients with or without their lawyers, and sometimes you need to have the lawyers in the room or the clients don't feel comfortable making decisions. But for a lot of people, they're seeking out mediation on the issue of cost, and so they tend to not have lawyers in the room. I think, as you know, it's important to have lawyers at least review the documents, because even though you and I are lawyers, when we're acting as mediators, we're not representing clients. I also wanted to say that I think the kind of mediation that Judge Kopelman does can be particularly useful, because there's a large number of clients who just really need to have their day in court or feel like they've had it. And I think having it with a retired judge as a mediator is a lot less expensive and a lot less acrimonious than actually having a trial.
Right. And clients, even though the role of the mediator is not as a judge, it's not to make a decision, it's sort of shuttle diplomacy. Let's see if I can get you guys to agree to something, and it's totally voluntary, and the decision-making stays with the parties, not with the mediator. Nonetheless, I think the people, they want to convince the mediator that they're right. They treat you as though you were the judge, though you were the one going to make the decision. And I think, of course, and I would imagine you have someone who has been a judge has such credibility, you know, as though judges are infallible. And what I say is how it would come out. This is how, you know, I'm a judge, I see it as XYZ, therefore the world sees it as XYZ, or any judge would. Is that the case?
Well, another reason I think it's always wise to try and settle a case if you can is that you're the captain of your own destiny with a settled agreement. Right. You go before the court, it can be a roll of the dice, and judges aren't always right. Sometimes they make mistakes. I remember hearing a case, a 209A restraining order, where a woman came in ex parte, which means the other side wasn't present, and she has an affidavit saying, this man is pounding on my door, he's demanding to be let in, I'm terrified of this man. And I look at the relationship between them, there has to be some kind of a marital state, or boyfriend, girlfriend, or relative. And she writes special, relationship special, so I assume that's romantic. So I enter the restraining order, he's to stay 100 yards away, he can't contact her, turn in his guns, and so on, no abuse, and so on. A week later, in comes the defendant, and I say, Mr. Jones, that's not his name, Mr. Jones, what kind of outrageous conduct is this? I'm reading the affidavit, you're terrifying, this was an elderly woman, you're terrifying this woman, she's cowering behind the door. What's your story? He says, Judge, I'm the building inspector for the town of Brookline. He says, I've had complaints about bad odors coming from this building, and I have to inspect it. It was all fabricated. She was, you know, she had some mental issues. So I had to, you know, vacate the restraining order. But, you know, judges make mistakes. We're only human. Judges
make mistakes. And also, the way we, as a society, want the family court to be is we want judges to have discretion, because there's so many factors that can come into play in how a specific case should be treated. But with that discretion comes, I tell my clients, it could depend what the judge had for breakfast, you know? I don't know. You get to know, you know, the same way you were talking, you get to know certain lawyers, you get to know the judges. This, you know, Kopelman, you're not going to get alimony, okay, with Kopelman, because, you know, he considers alimony rolled into child support. In those, you know, in that kind of case. So with the discretion, also, there can be a big divergence of what the clients get. But what we're talking about really, I guess, is clients, divorcing parties retaining some control over their own destiny. And the other thing would be being mindful of the future. I guess you're so caught up, and I think, Howard, you know, we talked today. I don't know if you've had an opportunity. You were going to call the Judge Baker Center, I think, or you were going to try to
I couldn't find any research, but...
Tell the question I was curious about.
Well, basically, all the research, as I'm aware of, and I don't hold myself out as an expert, But the conventional wisdom, anyway, is that any conflict, whether it's about money, kids, property, anything like that, will have an adverse impact on children. And we've probably all had the experience of having clients come to us and say, my parents went through this divorce, it was really brutal, and that's the last thing I want to do to my own kids.
Right. We're going to have the perfect marriage because our parents are divorced. How I describe it to my clients is there's an old African saying, when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. And that's really, you know, they can beat each other up as much as they want, but it's really those kids who are going to suffer from it.
Well, I think Charlene can probably speak to this as a litigator. You know, there are a lot of questions that there really are no answers to. And
Well,
Yeah.
to the extent that it's possible to settle a case through collaborative law or mediation, that's definitely the way to go. As we've talked about, you're controlling your own destiny. You're going to feel better about the process when you're done with it. Litigation, as Judge Kopelman indicated, tends to bring out the worst in people. When you put someone on the stand and they're going at it, you can't take that back. And so you're going to have a relationship with that spouse forever.
Okay, so let's, we're getting actually near the end of the show, but I want to know, how do you find the right person for you? How do you pick the right lawyer if you want to litigate it? You know, do you want a scorched earth person working for you? How do you find the right mediator? How do you find the right collaborative law person?
I think personally word of mouth means a lot, because to just look through the yellow pages and try and come up with a name or see who's got a bigger ad is a futile endeavor. I think it's better to talk to somebody, if you can, that's been through the process and say, who represented you, how was it, what was it like for you? That's a better idea, I think. And same thing with whether it's collaborative lawyer or a litigator or a mediator. I think word of mouth is the best recommendation. If you have to go fix a roof, you know, you'll ask your neighbor, tell me, what was your experience? And do you know anybody that hired a roofer? And that's what I think you can rely on most.
I agree, and I think that doing your own research obviously helps, and as Judge Kopelman said, speaking to other people who've been through the process and who have had positive experiences. Because with respect to either a lawyer, collaborative law, and I do collaborative law as well, you really want that person to click with you. And that also includes the mediator. When you meet with a mediator, you want to feel as though that person is going to be impartial, and I think that's critical.
Same advice?
well, you know, I think the internet is probably, I find that my clients come in much more well-educated. You can do pretty good comparison shopping on the internet, and not every good lawyer is the right lawyer for any particular client, and there's just no substitute for meeting the lawyer, meeting more than one. Most lawyers will give at least a short amount of time on a complimentary basis to meet with new clients, and even if you have to pay for the time, it's worth doing, I think.
Right. And I think, you know, you just sort of skimmed by it, but a point I'd like to emphasize is interviewing the lawyers. Same as all judges aren't created equal, all lawyers are not created equal. And there are people who are, you know, uninformed and just think, oh, he's a lawyer, so whatever he said, or she's the lawyer. And it's not true. And an emotional, divorce is a very emotional experience, and you really need someone who you trust going through it, because you're going to have to go through so much. I can't believe, it's telling me to wrap up. I don't want to wrap up. I want to thank our guests, Judge Kopelman. I want to thank Charlene Caldeira, and I want to thank Howard Goldstein for being with us. This has been terrific. Will you all come back?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time on LawLine. Good night.